the key moment of the entire night. President Trump has been unable to unify the Democrats and the Republicans about anything. President Trump has been unable to get Democrats to clap for anything up to and including more black people, Hispanic people, Asian people, and people with disabilities working. They will not cheer for anything. But then he stumbles on the one thing Democrats will cheer for, Democrat women will cheer for, these fighters for the underclass. What will they cheer for? Themselves. So here was this self-congratulatory girl power bachelorette party nonsense that happened at the State of the Union address last night.
No one has benefited more from a thriving economy than women, who have filled 58% of the newly created jobs last year. All Americans can be proud that we have more women in the workforce than ever before. And exactly 1 century after Congress passed the constitutional amendment giving women the right to vote, we also have more women serving in Congress than at any time before.
And there they are cheering themselves. Yay, we love us. We're the best. AOC turns around and she actually gives an air high five to no one. Really, that happens. They're cheering. They're dancing. They're so happy about it. They love them. My goodness, the obstacles they've overcome. My goodness, what a place America is because these women were elected. Okay, this is off-putting garbage. The reason it's off-putting garbage is because if we are going to talk about the privileges that people have been given in the United States, it is a privilege to be born a woman in the United States today. America is the freest country in world history, the most upwardly mobile country for women in world history. This notion that women are uniquely put upon in American society is sheer statistical nonsense. It is just not true. And not only is it not true, the absurdity of these women declaring themselves heroes. Look at what we've achieved. Look at what we've done. Because look how much we've had to What has AOC had to overcome? Like a thing. I'm not asking like many things. I'm asking like a thing. She's a 29-year-old bartender with no credentials and no capacity to understand basic economics. She sits in Congress and is extraordinarily famous. What's the obstacle she had to overcome? Why are we cheering this as though this is something unique in American life? As though she is she's breaking a glass ceiling. It's just not true. It's just not true. And it does show the vision that Democrats have for the country. Okay, I want to talk about this in just a second. Democrats see America as a very different place than Republicans see America. So as I say, Republicans see America as a place with eternal truths. Truths like we are all created equal in the eyes of God. Like we all have equal rights. And we have imperfectly applied that rule, but we have moved toward the application of that rule. Women were given the vote more than a century ago. Okay, women have been in politics for a very long time. Women constitute the majority of voters. They constitute the majority of college graduates. They constitute the vast majority of people who gain new jobs in the current economic upsurge. Women have had more wage mobility in the last 30 years than men have in the United States. Women are not victims. And this notion that Democrats are pushing that women have overcome now because lots of women were elected to Congress. Oh, look at us. We are just so awesome. It's so funny. AOC will say that she has cisgender privilege. Because she's a cisgender woman, she has privilege. We all have to acknowledge our privilege. White privilege and male privilege, the privilege of the patriarchy. But nobody in the Democratic Party will acknowledge the greatest privilege of all, which is that they stand on the shoulders of people who actually made sacrifices, people who actually had to overcome, people who actually were part of the American story, making America better. Sitting around and championing yourselves as overcoming some sort of victimhood when you've experienced no victimhood is a mark of ingratitude and nastiness. There are people in that room who had to live through the civil rights movement and actually did heroic work. I'm talking about people with whom I disagree harshly on politics, people like John Lewis, who actually had to live through the civil rights movement and were deeply influential in helping make the country a better place. Those people, if you say John Lewis sits in American Congress, that's something to cheer about. AOC sits in American Congress. Oh, let's cheer because women are in Congress now. I'm sorry. There was nothing that was overcome here. Nothing. There was no barrier to entry for women in Congress. There is nothing uniquely amazing about what just happened in the last election. I know we're supposed to pretend that women broke through a glass ceiling. There was no glass ceiling in American politics. Hillary Clinton won the popular vote in the last election cycle. She was Secretary of State. Condoleezza Rice was Secretary of State. Sarah Palin ran for Vice President. Nancy Pelosi, this is not her first round as Speaker of the House. She was Speaker of the House 12 years ago. Can we stop pretending now that women are massively victimized in American society by the patriarchal hierarchy? And that the only thing worthy of cheering is these Democrats cheering themselves? It shows an utter, incredible ingratitude. President Trump spent a lot of his speech last night, we'll get to it, paying homage to the heroes of the past who actually had to overcome obstacles. The people who stormed the beaches of Normandy, the civil rights workers who had to be attacked by dogs in order to try and gain the capacity to even vote under the law. Those are heroes. Those are people you cheer. You don't cheer yourself just because you're a woman and you happen to be in Congress because you won 15,000 votes in a primary against Joe Crowley in a majority minority district. It doesn't wash. And not only that, it promotes this vicious idea that America is still a place filled with boundaries that must be overcome, particularly for women. And that is it's just nonsense, and it's self-serving nonsense too. It's so arrogant, honestly, to cheer your own achievement when you haven't achieved anything. Or at least if your achievement is not in spite of a great obstacle. Listen, I'm not somebody who's had to overcome a lot of obstacles. I've never said I am. I am grateful to live in a country where I don't have the obstacles of war and discrimination to overcome. I'm deeply grateful for that. My great privilege in the United States is I have two great privileges. One, I grew up with great parents. And two, I grew up in the greatest country in the history of mankind, bar none. Those are my privileges. My privilege is that I grew up on the back of giants, on the shoulders of giants. Nobody in the Democratic Party is willing to acknowledge that. The sacrifices of the past mean nothing because America is still a place filled with obstacles and difficulties, and it's so hard for women in America. It's just not true. It's just not true. Frankly, I'm kind of astonished at the lack of intersectional understanding on the part of these Democratic women. Like from a left perspective, if you are going to rank victimized groups in the United States, women come in close to last as a victimized group in the United States. If you were going to cheer anything and celebrate anything, presumably you would be celebrating black employment rates. On the intersectional hierarchy, black ranks higher than female. But the only thing these Democrats were getting up and cheering is, oh, we're women and girl power, and wow, we've done something unique. You haven't done anything. I'm sorry, you haven't. Also, there is a very anti-transgender element to all of this, which is, if you believe that gender is a social construct, then why does it matter whether women are elected to Congress or not? If gender is just something that we made up, then why are we cheering for women being elected to Congress? All of this was really off-putting, and it cut against and also it was a smart play by Trump because now he's got a bunch of women standing and cheering for him. Now, the media tried to unspin this. The media tried to say, well, they were kind of self-mocking Trump. They were trying to mock Trump because most of these women were Democrats. There's an idiotic fact check that said, President Trump said, we have more women serving in Congress than ever before. Fact check. They're all Democrats. Did Trump say they were Republicans? He didn't. Right? All this is an attempt to spin away from a bad optic moment for the Democrats because, again, Democrats will not stand for low black unemployment rates, but they will stand for we're awesome and we love us and here we are dancing and doing karaoke night in the middle of Congress. Really off-putting, really honestly, kind of morally despicable. Like patting yourself on the back while failing to, you want to check your privilege, check your privilege. Ladies, check your privilege. You grew up in the freest, richest country in world history, the most free country for women in world history. Check your privilege. Stop pretending that you did it yourself. You didn't build that, as you might say. This was not you. You didn't build it. All your forebears built it. You might want to think about that before you start standing up and cheering for what wonderful things that you've done when legitimately you've done nothing except run for office and then win. Congratulations. You're just like everybody else in that chamber who ran for office and won.